Hello everyone, good morning. This is Ria Luz of Buhay Buhay sa Amerika, and today we have understanding mother-daughter relationship, and I have with me my daughter Hannah, and I have another special guest to bring into you, my very good sister Glenda Lambert, the Women's Federation for World Peace Southwest Regional Coordinator and the Global Women's Peace Network Chair of Arizona. Glenn, good morning.
Good morning, Ria and Hannah. Good morning, everybody. It's so wonderful to be here. I just want to let you know, be ready for an incredible sharing about mother-daughter relationship. What is going on there? How can we make it even better? Do I have a good relationship or not? Oh, I think I do. Oh, no, I don't. So all these little comments you're hearing. So we're so excited, to have two experts working with us today. And so please listen well. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments. We want to hear them. But I'm so grateful, Ria, to be in your wonderful, all worldwide known show. And I'm so grateful that you took us on to really inform us mothers and daughters and also sons and husbands to really the importance, of mother-daughter relationship. Thank you so much for having me on, Ria.
Well, thank you so much, Glenn. And since we are talking about the Women's Federation for World Peace and the Global Women's Peace Network, who actually sponsored this episode, made it possible because of you who shared this to us. And I want the world to know what is the Women's Federation for World Peace. In a short clip, we'll be sharing with you this wonderful educational material to learn
Perfect.
more about the Global Women's Peace Network. So
Awesome.
let me share with you and let you know what is the Women's Federation for World Peace.
World peace has never been easy. The path to peace in a male-dominated world has always been a difficult battle, and the biggest victims have been children and women. In 1992, Women's Federation for World Peace took a historic step on the path towards world peace and towards changing the world through maternal love.
세계 평화 여성 연합 운동은 여성만을 위한 운동이 아닙니다. 이상적 가정들이 모여서 이상적인 국가, 이상적인 세계를 이루게 되는 것입니다.
WFWP has partnered with the United Nations, governments, and civil society in all parts of the world. From 1992, in 119 countries, Women's Federation for World Peace members have organized programs aimed at transforming this world into a world of peace. We have provided literacy, vocational, and public health education to foster women's independence. We have carried out family values and sex education programs, seminars on marriage, education for parents, and family counseling to build peaceful families. We have held programs for women, including leadership education, peace conferences, and peace academies to develop women's leadership. And we have organized sisterhood ceremonies to promote reconciliation and heal historical resentment and hatred. And thanks to the partnerships with governments and numerous organizations, these efforts have brought true progress. More than 35,000 women and girls received education that helped them to become financially independent. More than 327,000 women and girls received education for building peaceful families. More than 360,000 women and girls received leadership training to empower and elevate their status in society. And more than 160,000 women have participated in sisterhood ceremonies to reconcile historical resentment and hatred. Women's rights have greatly improved over the past 30 years, but even where there has been progress, it is not enough, and tremendous challenges still remain in many, many countries. COVID-19 reveals huge global inequalities. Wars and conflicts continue, and the threat of climate change is still getting worse. Women and girls are the most vulnerable in these crises. But women have special qualities of empathy, caring, solidarity, and love. With these qualities, women and girls must take a bold step forward to take on the unfinished business of creating a lasting world of peace. Historically, world peace has never come easy, but for 30 years, through the maternal love of women, we have worked to create a more peaceful world and will continue to do so until peace can be and is a reality for all.
That's great.
Wow. What about
Yeah.
that, Glenn?
That was just an amazing video. I mean, it already told the whole picture, what Women's Federation is all about, and definitely women, make the, we are the one really making out the most in the world. So we can definitely make a change, and we can start with Hannah.
Yes, starts with you and me and our generation, second generations, and our coming generations to come. Another thing is, Glenn, I am so impressed. We have the founder of the Women's Federation for World Peace who is going to speak tonight. And I actually got the chance to see this flyer, or not tonight, but this is June 5.
Yeah.
5 June 5 at 6 p.m. Let me make this share screen full. And Glenn, if you can make it a little bigger, can you? Or if not, it's okay. What we can do is tell people about this wonderful event on June 5 at 6 p.m. The Peace and Blessing. Peace Starts With Me is coming. And it is with Dr. Hak Jahan Moon, the founder herself of the Women's Federation for World Peace, is coming to share this wonderful message and give the blessing of family and marriage.
Yep.
And Glenn, if they can see, Hannah, what do you call that thing?
QR code.
The QR code.
Yes.
People just need to actually
use their phone, huh?
Yes, you just need to scan close to that QR code, and that's how easy you can register. So let's invite everyone, Glenn.
Yeah, definitely. If you don't have a phone, which is really not normal, but if you don't have a phone, you can go online, wfwp.peacestartwithme.com. That is where you also can go and register. But, please show up. June 5th is an incredible show with incredible artists. And of course, the main speaker will be Dr. Hakyahan Moon, or we call her the Mother of Peace. You want to hear the message. So be ready. June 5th, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Pacific Time. So I hope to see you there. Go ahead and register.
And also tonight, she is coming to this wonderful event, Think Tank 2020 at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Register at rallyofhope.us.
Perfect.
And yes, so thank you so much, Glenn, for sharing that. And so much things are happening. And so, but before we bring our very important speakers tonight, I saw on the comment we have our President of the Women's Federation for World Peace, USA, Miss Angelica Selly, who is saying congratulations on this program for mothers and daughters. And we have to tell happy birthday, Miss.
Yes, happy birthday.
On behalf of all the Women's Federation for World Peace chair and leaders in America, we honor you and thank you for a decade of service to
Yeah.
America. And yeah, so right now we are so ready to bring our special guests. Glenn, let's welcome them, Ms. Rosjke Hasseldine and Hillary Trong.
Yay! Welcome. Wonderful.
Hillary, you are mute.
So, do you want me to introduce Rosjke?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Well, Rosjke Hasseldine, welcome to the show together with Hillary. But I know that, I'm going to introduce Rosjke, and then Rosjke will introduce Hillary because, you know her so well. But I just want to say what an incredible, incredible honor it is for you to be here. And, I was always thinking about, oh, I have a good, warm, supportive, loving relationship with my mom. There's nothing wrong with me and my mom until I read your book. And I realized that, oh my goodness, I got some underlying issues here. So today I really want to introduce to you all a mother-daughter expert. She's going to help us how to navigate the relationship between mother and daughter. And Rosjke is one of the few, I have to really say, one of the few therapists who really is specialized in the mother-daughter relationship, because I did Google, I went on YouTube because I wanted to see if there's somebody else out there. But there were few who really do the work you're doing, Rosjke. And I'm so grateful. I just want people to know that you wrote 2 excellent books. The first one is the mother-daughter, well, I think so. The mother-daughter puzzle, which is the one that I love the most. And also another one called The Female Scream. If the audience have a chance to read it, they have to buy it because it is just amazing. Also, Rosjke is the director and the founder of the Mother-Daughter Coaching International. And she spoke worldwide about this topic, about how to work with mothers and daughters and help them. So she's going to be here today to really give us some insight about that relationship, how we can navigate it. Why is it happening that we have so many conflicts? So with that, I just want to now welcome her and go for it, Rosjke. We're excited to have you here. And so tell us what we need to do to become better mothers and daughters.
Okay, thank you so much, Glenda, for that introduction. It's like, wow. And for Ria, for both of you for organizing this. And I know Women's Federation for World Peace, I've done quite a few talks for Women's Federation for World Peace in the UK, and it is an amazing organization. It's global and it does incredible work. But yes, before I delve into the nitty-gritty and the underlying dynamics of mothers and daughters, I do want to introduce you to Hillary, who's an expert on mothers and teen daughters, and she helps women and girls, mothers and daughters, understand their relationship and create the bond that they deserve and desire. Hillary is she's a graduate of my training program, and she's actually also part of the teaching faculty. So I remember when I first met Hillary, I was just blown away by her passion and her wisdom and her expertise. And I was so honoured to have her as part of my my growing tribe of mothers and daughters. And I am doubly honoured that she has agreed to teach the online course for mothers and daughters. So yeah, I'm a very grateful woman to have Hillary as part of my tribe. So but yes, so we'll hear Hillary's wisdom in about 30 minutes. So I will now, the 2 things that I wanted to talk about today is, firstly, I wanted to tell you the story of how I came to spend my life really understanding what's going on between mothers and daughters. And then I want to tell you 2 key things that I've learned through this journey. So I was actually born in New Zealand from Dutch immigrant parents. My parents immigrated to New Zealand just before I was born. And my grandmother and both my grandparents also immigrated to New Zealand. So I grew up with a very stoic, silent, sacrificing grandmother, watching her never ever once say what she needed, what she desired. It was all about giving, 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 and all about facilitating everybody else's life. And I also grew up with a mother who probably watched her very passive, stoic, silent mother decide, and so she decided to become very controlling. So right at the start, I want to say very clearly that understanding mother-daughter relations is not about blaming women for how they behave. It's understanding that, of course, it makes sense that my mother would have become controlling. She had a very controlling father, and she had a very passive mother. So it actually makes sense when you think, this is how I get my needs met. And I often hear mothers and daughters, or particular daughters, say, when I ask them, how did your mother voice what she needed? And the daughter would say, oh, but my mother was really controlling. She got everything her way. And the thing is, did she? Because actually my grandmother's passive silence and my mother's controlling are two sides of the same coin. Because if we dig below the surface, it's all about not knowing how to voice what you need, not feeling entitled to have your needs met, and feeling invisible. So both my mother and my grandmother were invisible. They just expressed it in a different way. And one of the dynamics is, I'll mention many times in this talk, is that what happens when a mother doesn't know how to voice what she needs, what she thinks, what she desires, particularly what she desires and what she needs, both either, physical support or emotional support, it's the daughter then that is then expected to listen for what the unvoiced needs of the mother and the unmet needs of the mother. And that is a generational pattern. But I'll get back to that. So I had two epiphanies, and I write about both of them in the Silent Female Screen. The first one actually happened when I was 16. I just biked to school, and as I was locking my bike in the bike stands, this is New Zealand, so this is what we do in New Zealand. We bike to school, we lock our bikes, we go to class. But as I was locking my bike to the bike stands, I had this voice, I heard this voice in my head that said, how your mother's behaving is not okay, and you need to find out what's going on. And I'd never, ever really questioned the behavior at all until that voice sort of woke me up. And I realized that, there's something wrong here that I needed to really get to grips with. And the second epiphany came 10 years later when my daughter was born. And when Olivia was born and the nurse said I had a daughter, I had this incredible experience where, in a sense, the room went dark, and on the wall, and again, I write about this in the Silent Female Screen, and on the wall opposite my bed, I saw like a movie of all the ways that the women in my family have been silenced, the violence that they've experienced, how they've not been treated as people, how they've been expected, and I write about the culture of female service, they've been expected to be there for everybody else, but no one was there for them. And I saw how this selflessness and the sacrifice and that created the sort of martyrdom as a badge of honor in my family, how that had harmed my relationship with my mother and my mother's relationship with my grandmother, and how it had really disempowered the women in my family. And I realized at that point, and I was 26 years old at then, that I really needed to get to grips with what had gone wrong between my mother and I, and my grandmother, my mother and my grandmother, so that my daughter and I had a different relationship. So that I needed to understand what I had inherited from my mother and my grandmother, the beliefs, the behavior patterns, the ways of seeing the world, the ways of seeing what it means to be female. And to celebrate the great stuff because there was some great stuff, but to understand some of the harmful messages that have been so normalized in my family that were actually harmful to my sense of self as a woman and my power, but also harmful to the mother-daughter relationship.
Right.
So in actually giving birth to my daughter, I actually gave birth to myself and actually my career at that point.
Wow.
Because,
Wow. Awesome.
yeah, because in a sense, I started researching. So this is, this was, 32 years ago. And there really wasn't much around at that point. But very quickly, I knew this was what I was going to do for the rest of my life. So it led me to do my master's degree at Indiana University and graduated in 1997, where my partner and I and our kids moved to England, where I set up my first private practice. And at that time, so this was 1997, I didn't know anybody else who specialised in mothers and daughters. And a lot of colleagues were saying, oh, do you think this is a good idea? But I knew in my bones this is what I needed to do.
Mm.
So as I started seeing mothers and daughters, I realised that some of the theories that a lot of the theories actually, I'm sort of understating it here, but actually a lot of the theories that I'd been taught really didn't work very well with mothers and daughters. And as I looked at that, I realised they were created by men. That the theories see women from a male perspective. So I went on a journey to find out, like Carol Gilligan, Jean Baker Miller, Paula Kaplan. That's just 3. There is plenty more of female researchers and female theorists and women's development theorists who understand, have learned to look at what does it mean to be female from behind women's eyes. What's the emotional reality of women, not in terms of what men project onto women and how men see women from their perspective, but what is it from women's perspective? I think women have been taught to not recognise that their unique female perspective is often missing. It's not inquired after, it's silenced, it's undervalued. And really the mother-daughter work is really about giving a voice to the female perspective. What does it mean to be female? What does it mean to be a woman, a mother, a daughter, a girl?
Yes.
Wow.
So there are 2 key things I want to talk about that I learned in my journey. The first is that the mother-daughter relationship is not separate from where the family and the society. Often it's carved out into mothers and teenage daughters or daughters with elderly mothers, and they create their unique conflict. That's absolutely, the research does not support that at all. What happens between a mother and daughter is actually tells the story or is a mirror reflection of what it means to be female in a family, in a society, in a culture, how religion treats women. So what's happening in the socio-cultural environment of the family and the society that a mother and daughter are living in will directly impact that relationship. And it's also multi-generational. So what's happened between the mother and grandmother, so between the relationship between my mother and my grandmother directly impact my relationship with my mother. And therefore, as I realized when my daughter was born, even though I had no idea why or how at that point, my relationship with my mother would have had an impact on how not only I saw myself as a woman and as a new mother, but how I saw my daughter. And when you look at that, and when you understand that the mother-daughter relationship is actually a mirror reflection of what's happening in the family and society in terms of how women are treated, actually the mother-daughter relationship becomes incredibly powerful in terms of not only shining a light on how women are unsupported, their needs are not met, not treated as equal human beings, but they become a vehicle for generational change and creating the family and the world that women deserve and desire, and that men need as well, actually.
Mm-hmm.
You also realise that actually mothers and daughters are set up for conflict. And when I tell clients that, in a way I can see their shoulders go down. It's like, oh, so in a sense, this is not it's like they say, so in a sense it's not our fault. And yes, no, it isn't. That doesn't mean to say we have to put up with bad behaviour.
Right.
Doesn't mean we have to put up with emotional manipulation or, you know, I had to put up with my mother controlling behaviour. Not at all. But it does mean that we have to look beyond us to understand what's going on. And if you think about it, if you're in a family where women are not heard, where they're not emotionally supported, and it's a family, for example, that believes what I call the culture of female service. And I write about that, a whole chapter on the culture of female service in the Mother-Daughter Puzzle, which is a sort of an umbrella term for all the ways that women are expected to be available for everybody else, be caregiving, be supportive of everybody else, but not so giver, but not receiver.
Mm-hmm.
That women's needs, there is no language for even, that I need is not a language. So if you think about that, what does that mean for mothers and daughters? Firstly, it means that there is a language missing. That women don't learn the language that says, I need, I think, I desire. That language, and if I look at my mother's generation and my grandmother's generation, my generation, that language just did not exist.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what I see today, which is incredibly exciting, there's the younger generation of 20s and 30s and 40-year-old daughters are waking up today and realizing that this is missing and saying, we need this.
Yep.
Because when mothers and daughters don't know the language, I need, I desire, they're set up to fight over who gets to be heard, who gets to be supported, who is right in the relationship. A lot of mothers and daughters fight over who is right. And if one's right, the other's wrong. And so they fight. Because they don't know a reality where what women believe is their truth is the truth. Even if it's different. What the daughter is her truth and the mother's her truth are both truths. And that both women, mother and daughter, deserve to have their needs met. Both mother and daughter deserve to be emotionally supported. Restrictive gender roles is another one, where that set up mothers and daughters to fight over their lack of freedom and their lack of power. And unrealized dreams and potential is a huge one, especially today as our daughters gain more freedoms and more opportunities. Mothers being jealous of their daughter is a really very common dynamic between mothers and daughters. And there's an enormous amount of mother blaming going on about this and a lot of shame, like how could you be jealous of your daughter's opportunity, freedom, success. The way I think, or the way I've learned to see this, is that I see jealousy as grief.
Wow.
Think about it.
Wow.
If the daughter has got opportunities and freedoms and success that the mother never got to have, never got to be, and never got to experience, the daughter is able to fulfill her dreams. The mother was not. The daughter then becomes an uncomfortable mirror where the mother sees everything she never got to be and never got to have. That is grief. And if you think about it, our mother's generation and our grandmother's generation, I believe we have the world we have today because our mothers and our grandmothers were never allowed to fulfill their potential and their goals and their dreams outside of motherhood.
Yep.
My relationship with my mother would have been so different if she had been able to fulfill some of her thwarted dreams. And so with my grandmother too. My grandmother was a singer, but she never was able to. She was never given the microphone to sing.
Wow.
I mean, the grief of that, I think there is an ocean of it out there, and that deserves to have a voice, because when we don't voice that, we don't see what's been lost. And when we see what's been lost, we think we cannot lose that again in the next generation to come, in this generation and the next generation to come.
Yeah.
And that's how we create a world where women have an equal voice. In that, the power, just by looking at why a mother may be jealous of or unable to support her daughter's potential success, you see the power that the mother-daughter relationship has for understanding what it means to be female. The harm that like restrictive gender roles have on women and squashes their potential outside of the mothering role. So tomorrow's Mother's Day in America. I would say not only celebrate what mum's given as a mum, but ask her talk about who she is as a person.
Yes.
Over the years, I've developed the mother-daughter attachment model, and that's the first thing, the solution in that is mothers are people, have lives and needs and thoughts and dreams of their own outside the mothering role. So talk about mum as a person. Who is she? So the second thing I want to talk about is creating mother-daughter history mapping, and that. So I'll tell you about Isabella, because I saw her right at the beginning, and she was. That's not her real name, by the way, but anyway, I call her Isabella. She was instrumental in creating the mother-daughter history mapping exercise that I do today. And if you want to do this for yourself or with your daughter or with your mum, there's some very detailed instructions in my book, The Mother-Daughter Puzzle. So I saw Isabella actually in a psychiatric hospital where I was working, and her father had placed her there because she said she was mentally ill. Now, she wasn't really at all. Isabella was acting out. And so I was sitting with her, and I'd been taught to do genograms or family trees, and I'd already sort of frustrated with it because it always felt like, again, the male perspective, what the women had internalized as the male perspective in terms of what the men in the family believe who the women are, what they need to do and who they are and what they need to give was just coming to the fore too much. And I was missing who the women are. What do they really desire for themselves? So as I was talking to Isabel and trying to do her genogram, as it's called in the therapy world, I got so frustrated because she said, oh, mum's boring, there's nothing to tell, grandma's boring, the men are exciting. Even though what I already knew was that grandfather was very violent and abusive, father was controlling and abusive, and her aunt had a very violent husband. So she had no concept or language to talk about what her mother's experience was and her grandmother's experience and her aunt's experience. So I said to her, let's throw out the rules and start again. And she was up for this. Isabel was 16 years old. Probably forgot to mention that. Yes, she was a teenager. And so I put the three key women in the middle. Isabel, the daughter, and her mother, her grandmother. So if I'm mapping your mother-daughter history, you'd be the daughter, your mother, your grandmother. And we put the men there, not with stories about what's going on in their lives, but how they treat the women they say they love. And what came out was Isabella realizing how silent, even though her grandma was controlling, how silent her grandmother really was, and how critical she was, because she was in a violent, critical relationship. And her mother, she was so angry at her mother for not standing up against her father. But she got an image of what her mother's life was really like, why she was so submissive, why she was dieting all the time. Because basically this was a family where women are emotionally starved, not only, emotionally perhaps, and in some cases physically abused, but they're emotionally starved. These have no language and no acknowledgement at all. They're seen to be in service to everybody else. So when we'd done this, Isabella said, so I'm not crazy. I said, absolutely not. What's crazy is how invisible the women are. Crazy is how mistreated you are. So she took this, next time her father came, she showed her this mail. I thought, this isn't going to go well. But actually it did. The father, through this map, was able to see that how he was repeating behaviour from his father that he had not, that he despised in a sense, and and he hadn't realised. So she actually he took her out of the psychiatric hospital, and that map made a significant change. Now, I want you to tell, that doesn't always happen in terms of, not always do members in the family take this on board, but it still shows you the power that by looking at what it means to be the 3 generations of what it means to be female, particularly the emotional reality. Are women heard or silenced, emotionally supported or emotionally neglected? What's the impact of that? How does that make women depressed, anxious? Do we have eating disorders because we don't know, we're not fed emotionally? And how does that impact then the mother-daughter relationship in terms of arguing over who gets heard, who doesn't get heard, who gets supported, who doesn't get supported? So, and at the end of the exercise, you do a roadmap for change. So you actually list out what beliefs and behaviours and ways of seeing ourselves need to change in this, for you as a person, for the mother-daughter relationship, and within the family. The culture of female service, how does that need to change? It's not about not being caring. It's about also caring about what you need, what you desire, what you think, that you're part of the team. You're an individual within the family that needs just as much care as everybody else, just as much support as everybody else. I often get asked about daddy's girl, which I think is a confusing, I think that's often confused as a good thing when in fact actually it isn't. Often what can happen between, like if a father really invests a lot of his love and attention and support in the daughter, but not, and it's disproportionate in terms of, and in a sense neglects his wife, the mother, that on the surface may look great and empowering, but it is actually very confusing for the daughter and very toxic for the mother-daughter relationship. Because again, in terms of, if you look at the mother-daughter generations, your mothers need as much care and attention as so does daughters, and so do the grandmothers. So again, it sets it up as in terms of jealousy or resentment, in terms of who gets attention from the man, the father. And also the daughter then gets confused. It's like, she loves mum, so why is she not getting what she desires, what she needs? So I've talked a lot.
We want to hear more.
Hillary, I can take one. Let me just finish off. There's actually a quote I've got. I was going to read. I was going to just read a little bit, just one paragraph out of Mother-Daughter Puzzle. The time has never been more right for women to learn how emotional silence limits their voice and power. Equal rights laws have brought women a long way, but they have not and cannot change women's generational experience of emotional silence and emotional neglect. It is time women uncovered these themes in their lives and their grandmothers' lives and their mothers' lives. It is time for women to recognize the dire emotional consequences women face when they surrender their needs in their relationships, families, and workplaces. I want to read that last sentence again because to me, I think this is the next stage of the women's movement. It is time for women to recognize the dire emotional consequences women face when they surrender their needs in their relationships, families, and workplaces. Women need to gain, it's what I call a muscle, their needs muscle, the needs language. Because without it, we have no power, we're invisible, and we're actually emotionally starved.
Wow.
Yes. Powerful.
That is powerful.
Thank you.
Wow. Claim your needs, woman.
Yes.
Claim your needs.
So, let me just quickly touch. So you can get my books on Amazon. They're also available on Kindle. Go to if you go to motherdaughtercoach.com, if you're a therapist or a coach and you want to draw my, increasingly larger. Oh, thank you. Yes, there's the website. Excellent. Yeah, if you want to join if you're a therapist or coach and you want to join my international tribe of coaches and do the training, have a look at attachment training up there. Courses, Hilary is going to be teaching the Your Mother-Daughter Puzzle course. All my courses are online, and so Hilary's is an online course for mothers and daughters 18 years and older. And if you need help, find a coach. That's where the graduates are listed by country. So yeah, see who's out there, see who's available, so that you can get the help that you deserve and that you need. So shall I take one question?
Yes.
Okay, and then hand it over to Hilary.
There is a male who actually asked.
There's a better question. I think there's a better question.
Is there a better question?
Someone asks, what do you recommend for fathers to learn how to balance that love for wife and daughter? So like looking at the entire family. Like I know your specialty, like mother-daughter, but in like this context as well, what would you recommend?
Well, I mean, as I said, fathers are incredibly powerful. How they treat women is vital because the daughter's watching you. Your daughter's watching you, and in a way you're teaching her what to expect from men, i.e. men being emotionally available for women, listening to what women feel, need, desire, emotionally supporting women. So what I would actually suggest is actually get the mother-daughter puzzle, and you can really change it and look at your generational history. I know this sounds a bit out there, but father, you as the father, your father, grandfather, and understand what, in terms of emotion, the emotional language and how women are treated and seen in the family, understand what you've inherited. In terms of seeing what it means to be, male in relationship to your relationship with women, how you've been taught to see women and celebrate the great stuff, but anything that dismisses women, silences women, work on challenging that. If you do that, I think that's as good as it gets, actually. I think that would be incredibly powerful.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. Every woman will be right there with you.
Well, I have to mention the first one who asked. This is a male who actually asked this. Is it worth dating someone who needs their mom permission to go out? She's 24. Her mom is super controlling. What kind of mother-daughter relationship is this? So it may be someone just asked this question, but if you have an answer to that.
Well, firstly, I would actually look at, what do you want to date her? I wouldn't quite look at her relationship with her mother. I would look at her and think, is this the kind of woman you want to date? Is this, is it, you know, are you attracted to her? Do you love her? Do you think that she is there something there that do you want to find out who she is? Because yes, if her mother's controlling, again, so this is a family that probably, you know, if someone's controlling, that's in what I call a maladaptive attachment behavior, where you've learnt that the only way to get your needs met is by being controlling. So actually, if you're going into that relationship, listen to her. Show her that actually women get heard and emotionally supported.
Thank you. Thank you, Rosjke. Wonderful. But I just wanted to let you know how many people are so impacted and really relate to what you were saying when, like Mary Hida says, oh, how different our relationship could have been if our mothers had realized and had the support and education. Grief is a very profound word to explain what may have been what my own mother experienced. So she affirmed the mother-daughter puzzle. The book is something we all should really read. Yes. Thank you so much, Rosjke. And
thank you. Should we?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
You have already a following here in Arizona.
Wow. Let's kick COVID to the curb and we can actually come to Arizona.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also, I truly believe that the relationship of mother and daughter and our grandmother impacts what's my own relationship with my daughter. I truly affirm that. I know when you said mother-daughter mapping, my mind was racing and realizing why my mom has raised us that way, because she was raised the way I was raised. And so I truly appreciate you for this mother-daughter relationship and what you've said. Definitely, we'll get the book and we'll have the mother-daughter puzzle activity. Maybe that will help me change my relationship with my daughter.
Well, you'll get a lot of information about what does it mean to be female, and but I do want to stress there is a lot of great stuff in terms of, like, my family. This, along with stoicism, becomes huge strength, huge resilience. I mean, women are survivors. We know how to survive. So
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rosjke. And
time for Hillary?
Yes, we can't wait.
Great.
So, way you go, Hillary.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. And thank you, Rosjke, for that wonderful introduction earlier. That was just amazing. I'm so honored to be here, be included in this, and speak a little bit about the mother and teen-daughter relationship. Many of the things I'm going to share, you can see that it comes from Rosjke's framework and solving this mother-daughter puzzle with a focus on the mother and teen-daughter relationship. So I am going to share a little bit about myself, and then I'm going to share what I call the 4 keys to the mother and teen-daughter relationship. So I come to this work very honestly. I consider myself a recovered teen girl, and I didn't get here, by chance. I've done a lot of work. My mother and I have done a lot of work, and I'm now raising a daughter myself. And these are all the reasons why, I'm so passionate about this work, and I just soak up everything that Rosjke puts out there. So I am a therapist for teen girls. I work with girls ages 12 to 25. I'm also a life coach, working with mothers and daughters separately or together. So again, my focus is on teen girls, but really working with Rosjke, I've realized that the mother-daughter relationship is lifelong, and it changes through different stages in our lives. So I'm going to focus on this particular piece, and I'll tell you a little bit about myself as a teen girl. And so I really put my mother through the ringer as a teen girl. I was actually the second daughter. There's 3 daughters in my family. And so my mother had a little bit of experience with my oldest sister, but I think I maybe take the cake. So I really, I punished my mother with silence in my teen years. I did not open up to her. I was sort of stubbornly shut her out, and I was mean. I struggled myself as a teen girl, but I also grew up watching my mother not have the voice that I felt like she deserved. And so in some ways, I tried to be that rebel and have that voice, but it wasn't really accepted. I just sort of looked like a challenge. And I really blamed my unhappiness as a teenager on my mother. And, you know, this was during the 90s where there was not as much information out there as there is today. And, you know, Rosjke just shared, she, you know, got her degree and started working in the late 90s. And there's a wonderful book called Reviving Ophelia that came out when I was a teenager. And that's really it. My mom talks a lot about how there was like one parenting book when she was raising her girls. So, yeah, I think that I was sort of unreachable. And it seemed to me from my perspective that my mother almost accepted that our relationship was challenging, that she sort of wrote it off like, okay, this is the way it's going to be. And then as she gets older, it maybe I'll get a break when she goes to college and, you know, we'll come back together at some point. So fast forward 20 years, I am a therapist for teen girls, and I'm educating and supporting them, you know, through the mother-daughter relationship. And while working with the teen girls in my practice, I couldn't overlook that the mother-daughter relationship had conflict, lots of conflict and resistance with 90% of my clients. I didn't feel like this is a coincidence, and, you know, that if my own relationship with my mother was any indication, that mothers and daughters needed more support. And this was something I really wanted to understand. Time and time again, I would watch girls come into my office and sort of banish their mother to the waiting room. They didn't even want them in the room with them. And at the same time, in our sessions, I could tell that they craved a closer relationship with their mother, that they really wanted to be heard and understood by her. And you know, I listened to the struggles they have with their peers and the pressure that they would feel as a teenager. And it became clear to me, they really needed the safe haven of their mother, but at the same time, they're pushing her away. And so I could see that my work was not only with these girls, but also getting the mother back in the room. So the problems that I identified with the mother and teen daughter relationship was that daughters don't feel heard and seen by their mothers, that mothers consider conflict during the teen years and that resistance to be normal and healthy. And that they're also taught, mothers and daughters, that it's unhealthy to be too close, that teen girls need that separation, and, you know, mothers should be letting them go, and daughters should be doing their own thing as well. So I'm left with these problems, right? And my own experience as a teen girl. And this is when I find Rosjke. Immediately upon finding her, just through a Google search, I purchased her book, and The Mother-Daughter Puzzle, and I couldn't put it down. I just read it from cover to cover, all of the answers I needed in my own relationship with my mother, and helping my clients understand their relationships with each other. It just felt like two worlds collided, and I have never looked back. And so now I focus on the mother-daughter relationship in all stages of life, but really focusing on the teen girls. So before I jump into sharing my 4 keys to the mother-daughter relationship during the teen years, I want you to think about your relationship as a teen girl. And hopefully, I think, you know, we have some men today joining us. If you're in the audience, I'd like you to think about the women that you grew up with. So, or maybe a daughter, a sister, your friends' experiences as a teen girl. Tell me in the comments. I'd like to know, how did you feel unheard and unseen by your mother as a teenager? Did your mother have the resources and support that she needed to raise an empowered girl in the world? Tell us in the comments. And you know, if it feels important to you, share the generation. Share, you know, when you were a teenager, the year that you were a teenager, to really help us put some context in here. So let's see here. The first key that I'm going to share is the generational divide. So mothers and daughters obviously are a generation apart. And as a teenager, a mother of a teenager, you come to this with your own experience of when you were a teen. And today's teens are very different, just like they were when you were a teenager as well. And we're not always understanding our daughters' experiences because we're growing up in different times. Like if we think about today, girls feel so much pressure. This pressure to be perfect, right? To look perfect, to get the perfect grades, be the perfect athlete, get into the perfect college, right? They struggle with social media and all of the pressure that comes with that and the expectations there. And then you think about maybe the mothers of teen girls today. They're probably my age, maybe teens in the 80s or in the 90s, and they had different struggles with their moms. And for me, myself, my mother grew up in the 60s and or was a teenager in the 60s. And back then, I think, mothers were respected more. They were helped more than they are today. Children had more freedom, but it wasn't as risky to let your daughter go and have experiences as it is today. So understanding that we all come to this relationship from our own perspective, mothers not understanding where their girls are today because they didn't experience it themselves. So I think it's important as mothers and daughters during the teen years that you have conversations about these differences, and mothers are sharing, this is my experience as a teen. This is what it was like for me. And this is where the mother-daughter history map really can come into play, where, understanding each other's perspectives can help your empathy grow for each other and understand more where you're coming from and where your daughter's coming from and bring you closer together. My second key is looking at each other with softer eyes. And this is definitely something that I got from Rosjke. I loved the term. And it's really about, understanding where your mother's coming from, understanding your daughter's experience, and allowing for empathy and space for their needs. So a mother who's going to look at their daughter with softer eyes is one who understands that her daughter's experience in the world is different from her own. So when I found out, my daughter is my first child, when I found out that she was a girl, which before she was born, I was so excited. Immediately, I was picturing all of the cute things we're going to do, all of the pink and the tea parties and like me going to her baseball games and teaching her how to sew, basically having all the experiences I had as a girl, right? That's where I came from. And I realized, as she's growing, this is her own life. This isn't a time for me to relive my childhood and have her have all of the same experiences I have. And I think often as mothers, this is a mistake we make where we sort of want to redo our childhood or live through our daughter's experiences. And this creates a big disconnect, especially with teen girls as they're working to find themselves and identify themselves when they're feeling like they have to live up to this expectation that their mother has for them. So I ask mothers to really take a step back and think about, is this something that you really want for your daughter because you're thinking about what other people will think or because it'll please you? Or is this about what your daughter thinks and what your daughter wants? To really separate the two. And I think that there can be a blurry line there. So the next one is that your relationship is lifelong and that your bond goes from childhood to womanhood. The old story is sort of that our daughters will separate from us as teenagers, and then we'll come back together after the teen years, sort of what I felt like my mom was feeling when I was a teenager. But in fact, our daughters need us even more during the teen years. They need our guidance. They need that strong foundation that only we can provide. They need a strong model, which I'm going to share more about. So I really I really think it's important to keep that bond strong and see that this is where sort of good communication comes from, and this is where you build trust and respect with each other. And like I said before, teens really do crave that close relationship with their mother. But in that relationship, they just want to be heard and understood. So we've been taught that it's normal for teens to be more independent and sort of look to their friends for guidance and spend more time with their friends and reject adults in their life. But the truth is that they really need mature advice from adults. And also, when they're turning to their peers for advice, it can really cause anxiety because the advice that they get from friends, because they don't always know, can I trust this advice? Is this the right thing to do? But also they don't have a strong attachment with that person. So if they're always turning to their peers, it really can create more anxiety for them. So it's important that they learn how to be responsible and independent, but that they always have the safety net of their mothers to fall back on. So I use that term safety net with mothers that I work with, and I ask them to think of themselves as like keeping their daughter contained in this safety net and keeping her safe, right? That is her job. But allowing her to kind of crawl up out of it whenever she needs, and then she can fall back in when she needs to, that safe haven, come back and get support. Sort of like when we are carrying a baby and our uterus is growing to contain her, right? And allowing her protection, and it's growing in order to help her grow. And so the same idea with the safety net, we're still going to keep her contained, but allowing her to grow at the same time. So I've seen mothers make the mistake of accepting that their daughters want to be with their friends more, and really stop trying to connect. Sort of like my mom when I was a teenager. I think it was so hard to connect with me, that I think she was, go be with your friends. That makes you happy. That is great. But this is such an important time to be connected with each other, and there are ways that you can do this, and it really is making time for time alone. And this can be difficult when you have a partner or you have multiple children, but really making it a priority to have time alone with your daughter. So I have 2 clients recently were talking about time for before bed. And I know with my daughter, time before bed at night is like when she downloads about her day. And that is the time that I get to spend with her uninterrupted, and we could chat about whatever is on her 6-year-old mind. And I have a client who, I was recently talking about this. She was feeling a little disconnected from her mother. And I said, well, what about, bedtime? Like, what does that look like? She's 13. And she had said, yeah, my mom goes to bed early, so she has a lot of time by herself. And it became clear that her mom didn't check in before going to bed, didn't like come and chat with her. And this is such a great time for them to have that time alone with each other. And then on the other hand, I have another client where the mom, and same age, 13 years old, the mom will come in every night and they spend this time together. Sometimes it's 20 minutes, sometimes it's 2 hours, and they watch a show and they hang out and they chat. And even during COVID, where there's a lot less to talk about, they still make this time every single night. And you can guess that the mother who goes into the bedroom every night has a closer relationship, right? And this is not happening in a vacuum, but we know that when you have that time together, that uninterrupted time, you make it a point, you go into the bedroom, you knock on the door, and you get in there with her. This can become a habit, and just spending that time together. The other thing I suggest is having time alone, going away, at least for 24 hours. Even if you have to pack her bag and throw her in the car, you go somewhere and you make plans, things you both like to do together, maybe some really good food, in nature, and you have that alone time with each other in order to just connect away from the stress, away from the homework, away from the duties around the house. You get that time together to really build that connection. And I will tell you, those are the memories that I remember with my mom that felt really good. when we would do those things together and we would just have fun, and she wasn't talking about my grades, or she wasn't talking about my friends, and we could just sort of escape. So that is always something you can, turn back to and build your bond. So the third one is that the third key is that mothers have to know what they need. And Rosjke talks about this, having a needs voice. And I say the same thing. It's building that muscle. So when I'm working with girls and sharing this message. I'm working with young women before they become mothers and sharing this message. And I'm working with mothers of girls. And it's so important as a mother that this is done so that they can model they can model the strength, right? Without showing that you have to be selfless as a woman. So this would look like mothers taking care of themselves first, listening to their intuition and using their voice and showing their girls that we are entitled to have needs and to have those needs met. So we really don't want our mothers of teen girls sacrificing themselves for their daughters either, like putting their daughters' happiness before themselves, like putting off maybe the exercise or the time with a friend or whatever it is in order to be present for their daughter. So I realize I'm getting close to the time, so I want to sort of pick the most important pieces here. So what I say and what I have implemented into my own life is developing that voice and asking for what you need. So my husband and my children know now that I'm going to tell them what I need from that. And with my husband, it's pretty much non-negotiable that, this I'll work around his schedule, but these things have to happen. I know that. And I see the difference in my kids and I see the difference in myself. Just having time with my girlfriends, being able to accept the invitations they send me, not being the only one who cleans up in the house, like really simple things, right? But just being able to ask for those things that I need. I'm also teaching my daughter this is important, and we are not here to take care of everyone else. We do this as a team, as a family together. So the other important piece I want to mention is that mothers teach their daughters how to be women in the world, right? So by modeling all of this and doing this yourself, you are sending the message to your daughter that she is entitled to live the life she wants and not feel the pressure of our society, like Rosjke was sharing, that we need to take care of everyone else and put others before ourselves. Because honestly, naturally, that's the message we get as mothers, right? So then the fourth key is about communication. And this is huge with a teen girl, and I'm just going to share briefly about this, but it's really listening more than you talk to get a teen girl to open up about her world. So when you're going in 20 minutes at night before bed, or whenever you get that time alone, you spend more time listening. And I share with mothers, if you're really feeling an urge to like fix that problem, you've got the perfect piece of advice for you to say. Would you like me to listen, or are you looking for advice? Right? And if she's like, I just want you to listen, I don't want you to say anything, then that's what you do. So I think that's huge. And then our body language, our tone of voice, how empathetic we are. Sometimes the problems, that our daughters have, again, different generation, different problems. It's hard to have empathy. It's hard to have patience. It's hard not to just like fix it, but it's really important that we do. It teaches our daughter how to solve the problem themselves. And that's really what I see as a therapist. I do this in the room with girls. And if I am just listening to them, often they work out the problem before I even need to say anything, right? Because just getting it out, we all do that. Just getting it out and having a space to do that helps us to hear what really needs to happen. And that helps her build trust and empowers her to listen to her own voice. So, I realize this is a lot of information. And I think sometimes hearing this, it feels like, oh, wow, I'm getting a lot of this wrong. And I think it's important that you know where to turn to gain the support. A lot of this information, as you know, I've gotten from Rosjke's books and working with her. And I think it's important to know that the disconnect you may feel with your daughter now at any age is not going to just work itself out. It really involves understanding this information and applying it to your relationship. So it really is critical that you develop and you hold on to your strong bond by having that communication, the empathy for her and each other, and building that entitlement. So I really see myself as a mentor and a coach who shares all of these facts with mothers, but then helps them apply it. And as well as modeling for the girls that I work with how to use their voice and embrace their entitlement before they become mothers themselves. So I would love to hear from you. I would love to answer a question. Yeah, and then let me see.
There are people who.
I have something I want to say.
Oh, Hannah
I
wants
think
to say something.
What you say is like so interesting, especially like you and Rosjke, especially because like from a daughter's perspective, you guys talk a lot about like the mother like learning to understand their needs and things, and like building empathy between the relationship. And I just think it's like so interesting how like I feel like as a daughter we don't realize that our mothers they're people before they were mothers, that kind of thing. And like being able to recognize the fact that like there was a time where like I wasn't like in her life, and that like she had her own like hopes and dreams and things like that. I think like that recognition of that has like helped me grow a lot of empathy for my mother and my grandmother, because it helps me like realize like, wow, like this is like, you know, an equal like adult person, because I'm 18 now, so it's like, wow, like this is an equal adult to me. Like she has more experience, like life experience, so there's so much I can learn from her outside of just being like that mother daughter, but like, you know, like yeah, just like learning a lot from other people.
Hannah, wow,
what a beautiful takeaway, Hannah. That's so nice, and I see that's really hitting you, Ria. I think couldn't ask for more than that, right?
Great.
Oh, awesome.
Yes, and there's many people who are already saying. Sarah Hirano says, "Huge fan of everything you are saying, Hillary. Awesome." And Mike, there are people who says teenager in early 90s, my mother was depressed and in conflict with her own mother. Someone wrote, my grandmother raised me well. Humble blogger wrote, my grandmother raised me very well as a good person. I came from a broken family. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers in the world. And even Micah the Shuttle. I was a teen in the 90s. My mom came from a broken home and had to do everything in her own. She raised us doing everything for us, like what her own mother could and should have done as a mom in the 50s. It was something I think I wanted to break away from when I got married and started having my own kids. Really, everyone can relate to what you were saying. Even Romina says, I can relate to that. It's easy to fall into the trap of doing what your mom didn't do, forgetting your child is a different person with different needs and personality. We have many people who watch and listen to what you said, and they said, thank you for the advice.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Right.
I have another question. Okay, so for the people in your practice, is it often like the teen girls who come to you, or like the mothers who go to you for help with their like daughter?
And well, now it's both, but before I learned from Rosjke, it was teen girls, and then we would realize together, this really starts with the mom, right? And I could transfer my skills to the mother, and they can have this close relationship rather than their daughter having a close relationship with me, right? I could just be one of the supports, not the only support. So I really did start to see my role as I have to transfer these skills to the mother so that they can benefit from this lifelong relationship. I won't be there forever.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Glenn, you have anything to say?
Oh, well, I got out 3 points: voice, authenticity, and claiming your needs. Those are the 3 things I got out of the conversations. And I have to honestly say that how are we going to help our boys, the mother-son relationship? How are we going to help them understand what the need is of women or their sisters even, you know? So is there a way you can maybe go a little bit into that?
I have a thought about that. I'm sure Rosjke does as well. I think really mothers learning to embrace their entitlement and develop that needs voice is they're going to raise boys that understand that, raise men, right, who now know, okay, you know, like my wife, she has needs, and I respect her as the mother of my children, and I won't lean on her to do everything. So I think that part of that really comes from mothers becoming empowered and having that information, and then raising boys who know that, who have that information too.
Right, like that.
I actually, you have anything to say?
You can go, Rosjke.
Oh, I was going to say the golden boy or the golden brother.
I heard that one before.
Yeah, we did the Women's Federation for World Peace did a conference on that.
Yes.
Yeah. See, in a sense, that's about mothers treating the men in a way, and it's in the sense of internalized sexism, and treating their boys as if, you know, and it's not expecting them to do any of the caregiving. And, you know, I still hear 14, 50-year-old daughters absolutely furious about the fact that their brother, even when they were a teenager, didn't have to do any of the help. So it's incredible. This is incredibly, it sort of continues the imbalance of gender inequality, and it is incredibly toxic for the mother-daughter relationship. So it's about mothers learning to value that, yes, men are equal and valuable, but they also need to be caregiving.
Yeah.
And that women are equal and valuable and don't have to do all the caregiving.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
I want to come back to something that you, Hilary, said and that Hannah said too, in terms of, because I think what you said, Hannah, was really profound in terms of understanding that your mother had a life before you were born, but also in terms of understanding that mothers can only mother to the amount of support that they're given.
That's a good one.
That's very, very important.
Yeah, that's a really good
There's a
one.
real expectation, and I think that, you know, the attachment theory that's out there from Bowlby, it's very common these days, a lot of people know about it. Really, I feel, though there's a lot of truth to it in terms of attachment, there's also the blaming of mom and expectation that she has to be all available. You cannot be all available if no one's available for you.
Yeah.
So the economic support or lack of, the emotional support or lack of, the physical support or lack of will all impact how a mother can mother. And that comes back to what you were saying, Hilary. I completely agree with, you know, in terms of daughters seeing that and understanding that is vital, rather than just blaming mom for not having been this or doing that or da-da-da. Seeing that mothers can only do what she is allowed or supported to do.
Right.
There's a question from Hera Hirano. Even if the boys don't see it in their fathers, that is hard not to crack. Support the father-son relationship, but let them know there is something they may not have been shown before. How can they receive that? Anyone?
Well, I mean, the first thing I want to say actually is women, firstly, I have two reactions to this. I mean, firstly, I think I often hear this with women, I talk about mother-daughter, and then it's like, oh, what about mother, father, son, or mother? And again, the all-important male gets brought in, when in fact, actually, I think there needs to be time for just mothers and daughters and women, rather than the men coming in. The second bit is women are always, in New Zealand, when I was growing up, there was this saying, you know, men fix the car and women fix the relationship. And the expectation that women have to do all the work in fixing a relationship. I think men need to step up to the plate and sort out what the sexism and inequality that they've internalized and actually benefited from, maybe, and also been harmed for, because even though I write about the silent female scream, there is a corresponding silent male scream as well. So what they benefit from, in terms of all the care, but also how it's harmed to them in terms of silencing them emotionally, they need to step up the plate and do the work. I bristle a little bit about the fact, and that may be a strong word, but women, there's so much on our shoulders. I think we can't, I talk about the bridge, we can only do half of 50% of relationships, and the other person has to do, and it's the same. Men need to step up to the plate and sort their own stuff out. Yeah.
I agree. And
Hillary, I don't know what you think. I mean,
I'm glad you're here because, you answered that. I think that's perfect. Yeah, I totally agree. That was my initial reaction as well. It feels like women are, we're in a patriarchal society, and here we are, trying to have our voices heard. And, that's the important piece here for sure.
Well, I still have a question, very important question, and that is, you talk about perspective, okay? My mom's background is different from my background. How am I going to have the courage to look at my mother with soft eyes, because it's what you're talking about. I don't know if it meant compassion, to really want to ask her about, Mom, what did you experience growing up as a young woman? Some parents are not willing to share that part because maybe it's too painful. But how can you as a daughter try to, reconnect and trying to figure out how can I build that relationship if mom doesn't want to share? So how can you inspire or support a young woman? And I hope that my mother-in-law listens. But, I really want, to understand how can I approach, because it's not always easy, to go and ask mom that really important question, Mom, how did you? And of course, they don't want to show their vulnerability too, so they want to find a way how they can look strong and I'm in charge. But deep down, there's something. So how are you going to help those women that really want to create that relationship with their mother, but mom is stopping it or blocking it?
Do you want to say something first, Hillary?
No, go ahead, Rosjke.
I think for me, and I know what you're saying, because my mother would never have opened up too. And if you add war, like concentration camp experience and violence and conflict like that, they've learned to shut down.
Yep.
They don't talk about it at all. And by shutting down that experience, they shut down everything. So my mother was in no way able to unpack any of this. But I think where I did you can make inroads is, I think, again, start with what I teach clients is go out, nothing about the relationship, but, tell me, like, some of the things that my mother really enjoyed was the travel she did. Tell me about that. So start with things that that your mother enjoyed, but it's nothing to do with the relationship, and get it to talk about stories. Because in a sense, that is collecting your legacy and your history, actually.
Right.
And then slowly, like, what did you want to be when you were 16? What did you want to, what did you dream your life would be like? And that's getting a bit closer, because possibly the dreams were never, if we're shut down, I would say you pretty well can guess dreams were not fulfilled. But the more stories, the positive, in a sense, you're building trust and you're sort of lubricating the conversation a bit, and then move closer to, the ones that you really want to know about us, in terms of what did you want to do? What did you dream a life would be like? What did you miss? Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Very good. Thanks, Rosjke. Very good. I like it. There's a question there from Corey. Yeah.
Yes. The question is, why focus on teens in this context?
Well, I was originally focused on teens, and really it came from my own experience as a teen girl and struggling so much. And I realized I never really came back around to say how the relationship worked out with my mother and I, but we are in a good place. And I think my own experience as a teen girl, and then the experience that teen girls continue to have and have always had, which is one that is hard, and you are really struggling. And so for me, it just became an area where I realized these girls need support. I feel I connect well with young girls. It's just always felt easy and natural for me, that they have, was sort of what I was saying before, like somebody they can, like a confidant that they can trust, but who is older, wiser, has the information and can guide them, versus going to their peers.
Yeah.
Wow.
I can sort of, I actually think what the work that I know that the work that Hillary's doing is vital, actually, because in a sense, if I see a mother-daughter and the daughter's in their 40s or 50s, 30s or 40s, the problems that they're having in their relationship didn't come then. They've been bubbling around for quite a while. And so in a sense, probably started in their teen years.
Yes.
There's a lot of research about, Carol Gilligan in particularly, who did a lot of research on women's development and teenage women's development in terms of, at 12 or 13 when women, girls hit the wall of patriarchy and how that impacts not only the plummet of self-esteem, loss of voice, loss of sense of self, fitting in with everybody else, and the mother-daughter relationship. So, the work that Hillary's doing is vital in terms of, because if you can get it right then, you've got the tools and you've got the knowledge to actually have the mother-daughter relationship that your heart desires.
Yes.
Rather than having to go back and repair. So it's really vital. It's a vital time to do the work.
And I may add, I am so struck when Hillary spoke about look your daughter with a softer eye, with a soft eye. That hits me because, and as you said, Rosjke, it starts from teenager. Actually, it starts from childhood. When our mothers always look at us, I'm looking at you, just in my language, you when you see your mom looking at you, you be careful because the mom is telling you something. Shut up or do something as I told you. And I think that's how we were raised and how we were told to be quiet from the moment the mom look at us. And that struck me. Look at your daughter with the softer eye. I should learn that. Thank you so much, Hillary.
You're welcome.
It's not just looking at soft eye, but also sounding softer.
Well, it means seeing your daughter as a person in her own right, which means seeing yourself as a person in your own right.
Yes. But it becomes, even if it's not if it's a figurative expression, but it is actually happening literally in a mother-daughter relationship, even at a young age. And that I think this is also cultural, how our mothers has raised us culturally.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Very good. I love it.
It says, do we still have one more time to answer this? What role does faith have in mother and daughter relationship?
Well, it depends what you mean by faith. I mean, I separate out sort of religious thinking, doctrine versus faith or spirituality. Faith is to me a very different thing to many religions have not valued women and as equal partners and very much expected women to be in the serving and caregiving role rather than in leadership role. So to me there's two different things here. You can have a huge faith and belief in whatever God you believe in, but then there's the religious beliefs about the place of women.
Right.
Yes.
I would think the same thing as like what you said. Like a lot of religions often have like very like patriarchal, like they don't allow space for the women to be their own people and things like that, or like just women to like explore things. like I guess like with the Catholic Church, like not letting like women be like popes and things like that kind of thing. So I think being able to carve out that space, like women being able to carve out that space for themselves, both as in terms of like that mother-daughter thing, and just like being able to have like their voices heard in religion could also be very beneficial for the mother-daughter relationship.
Yeah.
Wow. I agree. I remember I was a university counselor in England, and at the university, you know, they had chaplains, and they had a young priest. He was quite young, a Roman Catholic priest, and he was complaining to me about how, you know, he was like, women don't seem to want to get involved. I said, why do you think that is? There's no upward progression. You know, there's a huge ceiling there. I could look like he hadn't thought of that before.
Yes.
But that's the internalized sexism, isn't it? You know, it's a reality. Yeah.
And that's why Romina says, I feel so blessed to be in a faith community led by a woman. So thank you, Romina. And so amazing how much nuggets of wisdom and advice and beautiful inspiration for all of us women to understand our role, not just as mothers now, but really the relationship of mother and daughter will determine the future of the women to come to lead this world. And that's why I think Rosjke and Hillary, your work is very important. And thank you for being the voice of the silent scream of women. that book is definitely the silent scream of female, right?
Yep.
The silent female scream. Yes, it is. It gives voice to what we silently scream inside of us.
Yes. And this is actually a very great topic that should be told. That's why I'm asking people to do hashtag of the mother-daughter relationship, as I was mentioning earlier. Continue to place a hashtag on this mother-daughter relationship, because the more people hear and see it on screen, mother-daughter relationship, it will make more topics and conversation that will no longer be silent, but instead we are giving voice to more women who are experiencing this, wanting to scream, but no one can hear and no one listens. And thank you, Rosjke, for bringing this to us.
Thank you.
Awesome.
And thank you, Hillary, for all that you do as well.
Yeah.
I said, I'm deeply honored to have you part of my tribe. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hillary and Rosjke, two amazing women teaching us how to pass down the baton to our future generations, but, you know, doing it in their own way. So I'm so grateful. Thank you so much, Hillary. I already have your email. Got so many girlfriends that need your help. Rosjke, we're going to be working with you so you can work with us older women and truly, truly make a difference in the world, you know. So I'm really grateful to have you both here. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ria and Hannah, too.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Brenda. Wait, before we end, we have to share our Live and Bloom coaching for mothers and teen daughters.
Yeah.
By Hillary, as well as, remember, that's the website of Rosjke Hasseldine. It's the Mother-Daughter Coaching International. And someone was asking earlier, where can they find the book? And this is all at Amazon.com.
Yep.
So,
whichever country you live in.
Yes.
And also stay tuned. You know, don't forget, stay tuned for June 5th. So you can all see our incredible woman leader of our organization giving a presentation. There you go. There is the flyer. So I hope to see Hillary and Rosjke also signing up so you can see about all these incredible women. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Glenn, and for all of you who join us on this broadcast. And please, you see the value of this episode. This should not just live here. It should be shared to more women and men, especially men, for them to understand also what the mother-daughter relationship, they are a huge part of that as well. And so thank you so much, Glenda, for bringing it to us. And bringing Rosjke and Hillary. I'm sure so many people will benefit from this episode. And thank you, Rosjke and Hillary. Looking forward to hear more your presentation in the future, because I know you have many other students who also specializes on different topics.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Hannah, you have anything to say?
Thank you as well.
Well, thank you, Hannah. Lovely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
After this, I will have to treat Hannah somewhere place else that she wants to go, because I learned from what you said.
Awesome.
And escape. So I had an experience with my daughter, youngest daughter, that every time we have a stressful environment, we go escape on this spot. Now, every time I think of that, that's actually my beautiful memory of my daughter. So maybe I should create one for Hannah too.
Yes, definitely.
Awesome.
Hannah deserves that too.
I learned something today, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Karina Jager says, thanks, informative. Just had to figure out first how to post. Just share it.
I hear you.
Yes. Many thanks for the information and wisdom shared. Happy Mother's Day by Princess Layla. Thank you so much, everyone, joining us. And we'll look forward to see you more. Anything to say? Okay.
Oh.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
Yes.
This is the best Mother's Day gift. Every mothers would love for them to soak on this information, as well as for the fathers and the family to know that mothers, first thing they need is feel their need first.
Claim it.
Yes. So thank you so much, Glenda.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take care.
From my house to yours, happy Mother's Day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.